Hello everyone, we've made it to 700 videos and I asked everyone to send questions. A lot of people send me questions on Instagram stories versus YouTube, but the majority of the questions were MCU or Marvel related, and I figured, why not just have a Marvel Comics Q&A? Thank you to everyone who submitted, including both of the questions I got on YouTube. Thank you for being the only ones. First question, favorite pre-MCU Marvel movie? Ooh, that is a great question. Marvel had films before the MCU, and there are some misses, but there are a lot of hits. I think my favorite would have to be X2 XMen United. That's my favorite X-Men sequel. That movie was really everything we wanted to see in an X-Men movie at that time. In addition to that, I love Blade and Blade 2. Men in Black is part of Malibu Comics, but I would count that as well. Spider-Man 1 and 2, especially Spider-Man 2, is just great. I love Spider-Man 2. I have a soft spot for Daredevil 2003 and The Punisher from 2004. My guilty pleasures would be Punisher Warzone and the first Ghost Rider. But yeah, X2 X-Men United is probably my favorite pre-MCU movie. All I see is DC stuff on the channel. Are you even a Marvel fan? Really? Look at my channel. I have Marvel content. Some MCU. It's not as MCU heavy, but I have Marvel content. To answer your question, I am a Marvel fan. Am I an MCU fanboy? No, but I'm a Marvel fan. And believe it or not, there is a difference at times. If you could be any X-Men, who would it be? Ooh, great question. Any X-Men. There's so many. I love Gambit. Be cool to be like Magneto or Professor Xavier. I think for me, I would want to be like Wolverine. And not necessarily the adamantium, but with the healing factor. You know, I'm going through a lot of stuff this year with my health. We all do as mortals from time to time. And it would be nice just to heal. Even though you may still feel pain, it'd be nice to heal and just be 100% all the time without worrying about your mortality or just vulnerability as a human being. It would be cool to have a healing factor, I think. Thoughts on the Avengers video game? Oh, I absolutely love the Avengers video game. I'm kind of mad at the critics for bashing it. Wouldn't it have been cool if they got the MCU voice actors? Sure. It would have been great to have Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans in them in there, but I hate that everybody wants everything to be like the MCU. That Avengers was like the comic book Avengers come to life, and I absolutely love the Avengers game. Very underrated. The villain, Kamala Khan, was great as Miss Marvel. That game was just a blast from start to finish, had an amazing soundtrack, and I think because everybody wants Marvel to be like the MCU, that they gave it a diss and gave it a pass. And it's a very, very underrated game. Even with some of its issues and updates, I still think it's a very underrated game and probably my favorite Avengers experience even over the movies. It was like the comic books come to life. Top 5 Marvel video games. Oh, that's another great question. Spider-Man's going to take the list here. I think for number 1 for me would be Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales. They're very close. I consider them together, even though they're kind of their own games. I love it. Except for the Peter Parker makeover, I hated that. But other than that, the epitome of everything you wanted in a Spider-Man video game. It's the definitive Spider-Man experience. Under that would be Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I love the original Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Then it would be Punisher with Thomas Jane from 2004. And then I absolutely love the 2000 Spider-Man from Neversoft. And then after that would probably be X-Men Legends, which is kind of like a Baldur's Gate, Justice League Heroes, Marvel Ultimate Alliance type of game. I love those. Favorite member of the Avengers? Ooh, great question. With the movies, I would say Iron Man. I'm an Iron Man fan. Comics, I love Spider-Man and Wolverine as the regular Avengers, but as far as West Coast, mine would probably be Scarlet Witch. Although Hawkeye's pretty awesome, and I hope the show presents us the Hawkeye that we all know and love from the comics. What made you become a fan of the MCU films? When did I start loving it? Probably with Iron Man. I have a love-hate relationship with the MCU. Iron Man took us all by storm in '08. I mean, we all criticize and nitpick stuff with superhero films, but we're living in a time where there's not only a Justice League movie, but like 4 Avenger films. Like, we freaked out when Nick Fury brought up the Avengers initiative. Like, that's the closest we got to the Avengers. So, like, it's so cool seeing how far we've come along. Incredible Hulk, I absolutely love. Still an underrated movie. Thor 1, I thought was okay. Captain America First Avenger is almost my favorite superhero film with like X-Men First Class until the ending. It had the rush for the Avengers. It wasn't realistic how he came back to present day. That took me out of it. Winter Soldier and Civil War are definitely the strongest films out of that trilogy. And then for me, I mean, I like Guardians. There's Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is the one I really, really dug. But like the other films I enjoyed, and I thought they were good, but I didn't think they were the greatest things ever made. And I thought they were overrated, including the first Avengers. I really enjoyed the first Avengers on my initial viewing, and then second viewing onward, it wasn't that special for me. My favorites out of the Avengers are actually Infinity War and Endgame. That's just like seeing like a comic book event come to life, like the Infinity Gauntlet is Secret Wars or something, and everything you wanted to see from a comic book film with all your heroes in one universe. So I have a very kind of strange relationship with the MCU films. I actually like some of the other Marvel stuff more than the MCU, just because of how different it is, and I just feel like it's just... And it's good that it's for the kids, but I just feel like they're not as grounded and great as the way they could be, you know? I love the comics of Marvel Comics. People think I hate the Marvel, and I'm like, I'm not an MCU fanboy, I'm a Marvel fan, and I love the comics, and they brought some of the grounded storytelling from the comics onto film and try to, like, not Disneyfy it as much. Who knows what we may have. They may have had an Oscar-worthy Best Picture superhero film at this point, so yeah. I've loved it since its inception, but I've had a very love-hate relationship with it. I'm not all the way for it. There's just some films that I like more than others, and sometimes it's just not my thing. Not to say they're bad films, but it's just not for me. And going on a tangent here with DC Marvel, there's more than two comic book companies. I love Valiant, IDW, Dark Horse, Image, Dynamite. And to be honest, I feel like you don't have to bring down another film or property to praise another. They can both coexist, and they can both be what Marvel's best at and DC's best at, and that's what makes them both unique and just amazing in their own rights. So yeah, there's my answer. Favorite Marvel TV show? Oh, that's a great question. Growing up, I used to love watching the 70s Incredible Hulk. I absolutely love the Hulk. He's one of my favorite characters. Animation-wise, it'd be SpiderMan and XMen, the animated series from Fox Kids. X-Men Evolution's pretty good, but I like the 90s X-Men. And then as far as like other shows, Legion is absolutely one of my favorite, just most cerebral shows. And then Netflix, definitely Daredevil. I mean, I like WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier, but the Disney Plus stuff has nothing on Netflix. I love all 3 seasons of Daredevil. The first season of Punisher is amazing, probably one of their best. And then I like Jessica Jones. First season of Luke Cage I liked. And then we're not going to talk about Iron Fist, no. So probably Daredevil. Worst Marvel movie. There was a lot of duds, budget-wise, stuff with the rights. Punisher at Dolph Lundgren's very underrated. I think the worst for me, there's a lot of bad films. Like there's that old Captain America, there's some Spider-Man stuff. For me, it would probably be Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. That movie was just a steaming pile of junk. And the first one wasn't the best movie, but at least it resembled somewhat of Ghost Rider and wasn't just bad. And I mean, he had some good performances with like Peter Fonda and Sam Elliott. You know, it wasn't all bad. Blade Trinity is a guilty pleasure of mine as well, but that's also bad. But Spider-Man 3 and them, they're not as bad as Ghost Rider 2. And the other stuff is technically worse, but I give it a pass because of the budget restrictions, and it's before Marvel had big studios behind him. And even though the David Hasselhoff was Nick Fury, he at least looked like Nick Fury from the early comics, so I'm like, yeah, it's a low-budget TV movie. What do you expect from a TV movie? But, like, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, I'm like, you made a sequel that was kind of a reboot. It had nothing to do with the first one, but you brought Nick Cage back. It was just bad. I mean, you even had, like, an Easter egg for Daniel Ketch, Ghost Rider, but, like, that's just my least favorite. Even Punisher Warzone was kind of a guilty pleasure for me and resembled more of the Max series. So, like, it resembled somewhat of the comics. Spirit of Vengeance was just a massive disappointment for me. So, for me, that's my worst like Marvel movie. MCU film, Thor: The Dark World's up there, and I'm not a fan of Ragnarok's comedy. It works, but like Thor: The Dark World, he just fights a Power Ranger villain. Like at least Cate Blanchett in the Thor Ragnarok was a cool villain, but the guy in 2, like Dark World, he just looked like a bad Power Ranger villain. So yeah, MCU be Thor: Dark World. Marvel movie overall, Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. If you could direct any Marvel film, what would it be? Oh, that's an amazing question. I love The Punisher. I would do like the Going Out West story. For me, I would love with Sebastian Stan now to do a Nomad film. I have the first issue here. The first issue of Nomad right here. That's one of my favorite stories. If you can kind of bring that grittiness, kind of like nomadic person going from town to town, do like a neo-western like Logan, make it a bit more gritty, maybe a hard PG-13 light R with Sebastian Stan as a nomad character, I would love to direct that. Moon Knight is already getting his own property, so that's out of the equation. Other than that, I would love to make a Ghost Rider film with Daniel Ketch's Ghost Rider. Like, hands down. I mean, I know a lot of people love Johnny Blaze. I know a lot of people like the other guy from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but Daniel Ketch is my Ghost Rider, and that would be a cool Ghost Rider to present on film with the villains he has and the motivations for becoming the Spirit of Vengeance, you know. And that would tie into Midnight Suns with Doctor Strange and Blade. It'd be cool to do like a dark, kind of more Marvel Knights universe that's like an offshoot of Marvel Studios. Yeah, so pretty much those. Favorite X-Men film? Logan. Logan's my favorite. I absolutely love that film. It's everything that we wanted a Wolverine movie to be since day one, and it's just an amazing film. It's an insult to call that a comic book film. That's just an amazing film and a brilliant neo-western as well. Favorite Marvel villain? Oh, there's so many great villains. I love Magneto, but to be honest, my favorite's Doctor Doom. Hands down, in the comic books, Doctor Doom from the Fantastic Four. He needs justice. The Fantastic Four needs justice, but Doctor Doom definitely needs his own movie. That is like the best villain in the Marvel Universe that has not had a moment to shine on film fully. And yeah, I absolutely love Doctor Doom. I mean, he even killed his future self for being too weak one time. What does that say about him? First Marvel comic you ever read? It's hard to remember. My brother collected a lot of Marvel comics. I think it might have to be this Ghost Rider #1 here. I might have read some X-Men, I don't remember, but the one I fully remember reading is like the Daniel Ketch Ghost Rider run. I even remember reading the comic book that had the glow-in-the-dark cover. It might have been a later issue. Those were the first comics from Marvel I read, even before SpiderMan and some others. And then when I started getting into comics, I got into the Ultimate run. They gave a comic book when we saw the first X-Men, and it was Ultimate X-Men #1, and then I got into Ultimate Spider-Man. So I read that, and then my brother got me the graphic kind of trade-back novels of Dark Phoenix Saga and Secret Wars, and those were like the first major arcs that I got into. So yeah, definitely Ghost Rider, and then those other things were like the major arcs that got me into Marvel Comics at the time. And of course, I watched the cartoons. It was around when Spider-Man, X-Men, and all of them came out, so yeah, it was quite a time. Favorite Marvel story? Oh, there's so many wonderful stories. Punisher going out west is one of my favorites, of him just going after this neo-Nazi guy that's wearing like a Captain America suit with a swastika, just pisses Punisher off after Captain America's death in Civil War. And Captain America's just killing all these neo-Nazis, white supremacists down by the border. I love it. And he wears like a Punisher Captain America suit. It's just... Marvel wouldn't do that story now, and that was such ahead of the time for 2007. Another one out of X-Men, besides Dark Phoenix, I love the Dark Phoenix saga with the Hellfire Club and stuff. God Love, Man Kills is a wonderful X-Men story. Days of Future Past. I love the Born Again story from Daredevil. Secret Wars is cool seeing him get the symbiote suit. I also love the Extinction Agenda from X-Men. That's not everybody's favorite, but that's one of mine. That's a good story. Another story I really love is the Demon in the Bottle story. Favorite Spider-Man the Animated Series episode? Oh man, there's so many great episodes from that show. I think one of my favorites, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It might come up in a description here, but it was when his spider abilities were coming out and he was on the run and he was like mutating. I love that arc. I mean, you had a Ghost Rider arc, Blade, Daredevil, and others, but like that was one crazy arc that just kept going and going and going nonstop. He was just on the run. I absolutely love watching that arc on Fox Kids and on reruns when it was ABC Family before it was Freeform. I love that. That's one of my favorite arc and episodes from Spider-Man the Animated Series. Thoughts on WandaVision? I really dug WandaVision. The first couple of episodes, I thought they could have done without. Now, it's a great homage to the Dick Van Dyke Show and other stuff of the past, and I Love Lucy. So if you like that, you get where they're coming from, but it really doesn't get going to episode 3. Felt rushed at the end, but I love Elizabeth Olsen. She gave a hell of a performance as the Scarlet Witch. Ralph Boner joke was kind of cheap, but it was cool seeing Evan Peters Quicksilver. Paul Bettany as the Vision, and then of course Agatha Harkness. That was just awesome. With that little pendant, you knew it was going to be her. That made her younger instead of older. It was a great villain. She killed Sparky. That last fight was just cool. Like, I loved it. And it's one of the series that actually enhanced Age of Ultron. It made Avengers Age of Ultron a better movie. And those two are really cool to watch together. So yeah, I really liked WandaVision. Was it the greatest Marvel show, superhero show ever? No, I didn't think so, but it was a pretty damn good one, I must say. Which future MCU film are you looking for the most? There's a lot of them. Eternals looks cool, but the one I'm looking forward to the most is Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, I want to see what happens. They may have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield have a whole multiverse Spider-Man thing. I don't know. I kind of want to see Charlie Cox come back as Daredevil / Matt Murdock from the Netflix show. We have to see what happens. It'd be cool to see the other Spider-Mans, but I just wish Tom Holland would get his own film. I'm tired of him being a sidekick or somebody taking over his film. Like, just give me a Tom Holland film. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm not going to care about Tom Holland once Tobey Maguire's back. That's like my Spider-Man, so who cares after that? I want to see them back. So yeah, ever since DC did it with Michael Keaton's Batman, everybody's been wanting to do the whole multiverse thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how that ties in with the whole superhero genre moving forward, and then also like how that's going to tie in for the MCU with Doctor Strange 2, which of course is directed by Sam Raimi. That's another one that I kind of want to see. But yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home, I want to see what happens. Favorite Marvel heroine? I'm not going to say Captain Marvel. I don't like Captain Marvel. But Storm is amazing. And then Scarlet Witch. But my favorite is Jean Grey / The Phoenix. Jean Grey is just amazing. She's one of my favorite X-Men characters and one of my favorite heroines from the Marvel Universe. Thoughts on Venom 2 trailer? I did not like Venom 1. I wasn't with the audience on that one. But I love Tom Hardy's performance. He was in a much better movie than anyone else. I want to see what they do with Cletus Cassidy. It'd be interesting with Woody Harrelson. Andy Serkis, Gollum from Lord of the Rings, is directing this. It could be good. I just want to have it tied to Spider-Man in some way. It's weird. It's like seeing if like DC did a Bizarro film without Superman. And I feel like you need Spider-Man in some capacity in Venom. Overall, though, as far as like Tom Hardy as Venom, he's perfect, much like the cartoon or the video game from 2000. It would have been awesome if Tobey Maguire fought him in Spider-Man 3. Like, that's the way Venom should have looked from day one. But I hope it's better than the first film. It shows some promise. Speaking of Spider-Man, favorite Spider-Man film? Spider-Man 2 is probably my favorite, you know. You must give up what you want the most in order to do what's right, you know? And it has such a great theme. Peter Parker's just beaten up. A fantastic human story that shows us the struggles of what it's like to be a superhero, but also brings us a more humanized villain than Green Goblin with Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. Spider-Man 2 is just one of the greatest superhero sequels and just one of the greatest superhero films ever made. So that's my favorite. Thoughts on the Daredevil director's cut? I actually really dig the Daredevil's director's cut. Daredevil is one of my favorite films that actually got me into reading Daredevil comics. And seeing the film in 2003, I knew that it felt like it could have been rated R. It just felt like an R-rated film. And it's so much better. You get to see more of Matt Murdock being a lawyer, solving cases. In this film, more of his backstory and more with the Kingpin. That final fight is so much better in the director's cut. And what can I say? It has a kick-ass album. Man, I feel like listening to Womp Back Down by Fuel. Let's just say Evanescence was my 2003. Which Marvel character should have their own TV show? Oh man, well Moon Knight is already going to have his own stuff, so I can't say that. I would love, because you know Blade had a TV show, but Sticky Fingers wasn't as good as Wesley Snipes. I would love, even though he's in movies, Spider-Man. And you can make Spider-Man with a bigger budget and have it in the structure of Smallville, where it's in high school or college and it's like a Freak of the Week type of format, but it's with like the rogues gallery of Spider-Man, his everyday struggles. I think Spider-Man would make for an awesome TV show, and you get to explore more of Peter Parker and his life as Spider-Man in a TV show than you do in a movie. And as long as they don't make it like a Disney Channel original show, like the Tom Holland movies, and make it more like the animated show come to life, I think it'd be a perfect blend to present onto live action for TV. And I mean, if you can have freaking Superman and Supergirl fly on TV, there's no reason why you can't have a guy swing on webs and stuff and go through buildings. You know, technology is there to make it bigger. And I think Spider-Man would be excellent as a TV show. Favorite Stan Lee cameo? Oh, I miss Stan the Man Lee. There's so many wonderful cameos. Video game-wise, I love his cameo in Spider-Man from Insomniac. One of my favorites, there's him as the Watcher with the Watchers in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but my favorite would probably be from The Amazing Spider-Man. I love that with him just as the librarian, and he's just like listening to classical music while this fight's going on. And then I also, even though I don't like the movie, I love his cameo in Spider-Man 3 of like, maybe one man can make a difference, you know? And that's such a cool little moment there, and just a summation of his wonderful contribution with Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby, many other creators in the Marvel Universe, bringing these characters to life in a grounded world. And that's one thing I always loved about Marvel more than DC, is that they're grounded. They're not from a fictional place like Gotham City or Metropolis. They're from like New York, San Francisco. They're from real places, and it makes it feel real. And I like the MCU with the fantasy, sci-fi kind of mystical elements, but I kind of miss it when they felt like real heroes grounded in the real world. And that's one thing I always adored from Marvel Comics growing up as a kid and as an adult reading the stories. So yeah. Marvel has superhuman beings, but they're superhuman beings that deal with human problems. And that's what's made them last and stand the test of time, I feel. Anyway, thank you all for the questions submitted. 2 people, thank you again for submitting on YouTube. I didn't get very many on YouTube, but a lot of Instagram stories, people want to know about Marvel, so I was like, you know what, let's do a Marvel Q&A. And it's great to do this. Not many people know I'm a Marvel fan. I am. I'm not an MCU fanboy, but I'm a Marvel fan. I like both DC and Marvel. You can like both. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be this or that. And it kind of makes me mad because I'm like, you know, I think it started with the films. Comic book readers don't give a care. We just read comics. We love all these characters. So yeah. With great power comes great responsibility. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at FredFilmFanatic. Stardust closed, so we don't have that app anymore. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this. 700 videos came here fast, and this was a lot of fun, guys. Be sure to subscribe for more videos, and you can also check out my DC Comics Q&A/giveaway and some of these other videos for more comic book related content. I hope you all stay safe and healthy out there, everyone. Till next time.